interesting proposition by Don DeVore from the band Historics. He asked me if I wanted to write a story. His band was putting out a series of 12 inches vinyl, and if I wanted to write a story that continues from one 12-inch to the next, so you would have to buy all of them to get the complete story. And I always say yes before really thinking about what I'm saying yes to, and it seemed like an easy way to get a short story published. And then once I kind of peeled back and I realized how this would be appropriate, I realized that someone that was buying the Historics album is buying an album. They're buying music. They're not buying the story. So the story can't take over this album. Not that my story could take over the Historics album. It's a fantastic album. But so I needed to do something appropriate, something that was relative to the form, and relative to lyrics and relative to music. So, but yet it was too long to just be lyrics. It was over the span of 3 or 4 albums. So I wrote a piece that was what I consider to be somewhere in between poetry and prose, and it's about a couple who have grown very comfortable with each other, and so comfortable that they've started to lose this sense of risk. They've started to lose this sense of concealment, that there's always something concealed. They know there's something concealed, but they just can't feel it anymore. They have it here, but they don't have it here. So the girl in the couple decides that she needs to step it up. She needs to conceal something to save this relationship. She needs to make an active step towards something being concealed, so that there's a residue that they both feel. There's an active residue rather than a passive step, rather than this passive residue that just gradually would eat the relationship away. This gradual residue of concealment, which has to be there. So since I was playing with form, I also decided to play with the protagonist. So I wrote it as a girl protagonist, and I didn't really feel so comfortable reading that. And so I had Jessica Loretti. Jessica Loretti sings for This Frontier Needs Heroes. Her band, I think it looks like her band will be playing the NPR showcase at South by Southwest this year with a little bit of luck. It makes a lot of sense, so I had her read this piece. So the piece is called Infidelity. It comes in 4 pieces, and you're going to read the first.
Thanks. Okay. For a while, nothing happened. Fantastic excursions to amazing mazes with spiked cider and Dutch mansions, with 400 hand-carved pumpkins upstate with couples Nick knew from academia. Extended hour museum galas with proven German DJs, and home in time for sober fucks with familiar hands that had figured out just how to slap me. Pasta a casa in front of the TV for marathons of Locked Up Abroad and gossip. Weekend strolls through the barrio with endless drool dripping from the corner of my monkey boyfriend's mouth as we passed every Dominicana ass, which I always balanced with something like, I might not drop my pants for the entire Greater Antilles, mon amour. My tastes are a bit more selective. But I would and will do every last one of your friends, and you'll never know. So who's up? So perfect that when one of us failed to tease jabs about infidelity for a long enough gap, we assumed the other must be concealing something. This wasn't an obsession of ours, more like an exercise in honesty. Like, come on, after a complete spliff and an hour in the frankincense and culo-drenched Iglesia Dio Poderoso we'd hit up on some Sundays, are you really going to tell me I'm the crazy when I explode on Nick after all he had to offer was? Do you have to find faith to be the drummer in a church band? That he must be hiding something because he hadn't mentioned a single Dominicana ass all service? The drummer. Right, he was paying attention to the drummer when there was a swaying chain of 3 generations worth of Latinas who knew Dio loves the way they paint their threads on so tightly as to better facilitate his views of the fine work he's crafted. At least that was Nick's logic during what I perceived to be more honest times. I mean, we were perfect. The cosmos had lost their frigidity. The homing pigeons homed. If the gripe grasped me, I would have flinched. And the confinement I once dreaded at first snowfall had given way to cozy with a capital comfort. which is all to say we were veering perilously close to that nothing that consumed all our other spoken-for peers, those time-bomb relics of slavery. Nothing. Serendipity, when it came with a smiley face. Night had a destination. When New Yorkers walked fast, I really believed they had some place to be. This was solid. There was nothing I couldn't do with him, nothing I couldn't bring to the table, no chamber he wouldn't let me in. I need only ask. Thing is, I didn't always ask, neither did he. Knowing we could was enough to make curiosity feel like one fluid breaststroke. Fluid, that was it. Even our fights were fluid. Slamming bedroom doors, storming out of bars with half-finished beers, and poverty even felt fluid. Rare bouts of paranoia even felt fluid. Everything was breaststrokes. When the apartment was silent, I no longer heard the fear. Yes, of course. Thank God, you say. I'm with you. The fear blows. But to not even hear it when you know it's there, that's some frightening shit. The fear slices, hacks, pounds, haunts, and terrorizes, but at least it engages. This other thing, this residue, this seeming handle on things stares up at you expressionless from your empty brunch plate, deceives through keeping plans, patiently replaces your frayed ends one by one with fully synonymous fantastical encyclopedia entries. I unplugged the refrigerator because it hummed. I picked up my phone and frantically avoided all my impulses to call Nick. He'd become my go-to when I was scared. Shaking the phone with nervous tears in my eyes, staring at the number that memories of phone calls past had morphed into another image of him, I kissed the Nick, turned the phone off, hid it in a nook in the couch, and left the apartment. To save this relationship, to highlight our chafes, to connect through tatters and pulsing vulnerabilities, to keep the breaststrokes blissed, I needed to conceal something. With a secret between us, we'd be closer to the knowledge that the knowledge isn't ours. I needed to conceal to remind us both that something is always concealed.
Let's see where that's going, right? Right on. I thought maybe we'd have some of those LPs to sell tonight, but they're not out yet. I also thought that we'd have some of Jason's chapbooks to sell tonight, but they're not out yet either, and that's the way we do things. But none of us are as bad as Jon Curley, the next guest. He's really the pit of humanity at selling himself. So I'm going to do it for him a little bit. Jon has a fantastic new book out called New Shadows, and it's for sale tonight. I do have something for sale here. I have, I think one of my books is in the racks under LEO. And my most recent one is up here. If anyone here was ever so inclined to buy either of our books, buy them tonight, buy them from the Strand. This is a free event. This happens all the time. It costs nothing to come in. The Strand is an independent bookstore. You should support the Strand. By supporting the Strand, you support events like this, you support us, X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. I'm not trying to brush it off. It's important. If you thought about buying Jon's book, buy it from the Strand, and buy it tonight. I bought my parents. I bought them a membership to the Newark Museum for Christmas, and they went 2 weekends ago, and they watched this documentary called Newark. And they called me the next day. They were like, "We saw this documentary called Newark about Newark, and the guy reading just sounded so much like you. The way he played with words, the way he spaced his words, the air he used, it was so much like you. We thought maybe you didn't tell us that you made something called Newark. You made a documentary called Newark." So we stayed to the end, and then we saw that it was your friend Jon Curley, who was a narrator of this documentary Newark. So that's kind of the guy Jon Curley is. I had no idea, and I'm sure no one else here knew that he did a documentary called Newark that showed at the Newark Museum for, how long was it there?
September to last Sunday.
All fall. Thanks, dude. Great. So his book is fantastic, New Shadows. I've heard the poems a million times, and they're just starting to sink in, whereas I might find the dark place I might go to find my morals is Espanol.